stop that launch. Head for the control room in the underground base. Give Dr. Emmerich a call. There's no time.
It looks like they've finished getting Metal Gear ready.
How do you know that?
I overheard them talking. Where are you now?
Right in front of Metal Gear, but it's strange.
What is?
There's nobody here. No guards, nobody patrolling. It's too quiet.
Maybe because they're all ready. They said they even input the PAL codes.
What should I do?
All we can do is use the override system that President Baker told you about.
But I've only got one of the 3 keys, and besides that, like Ocelot said, there's some trick to using the keys.
Leave it to me.
You got some kind of plan?
Well, I'm in the computer room right now. I'm trying to access Baker's private files.
Baker's files? Don't you need a password?
Of course, but there are ways.
Are you a hacker?
Yup, that describes me pretty well.
Does it look like you can get in?
I don't know yet. I'll give it a try.
I'm counting on you.
That's where the emergency PAL code override system is. The control room is on the 3rd floor of the base you're in. You see that ladder next to Metal Gear? You can climb up there.
Otacon, how's it going?
Not yet. Give me a little more time.
That stuff that is flowing in those ditches on the 1st floor must be radioactive nuclear wastewater. You better stay away from it. You are already exposed enough just by being in that area. Any further exposure could be fatal. That place does not have a nuclear processing facility. It must be some other kind of nuclear material that is leaking, besides the dismantled nuclear warheads. Probably spent nuclear fuel or something. Anytime fuel is burned in a nuclear reactor, it will always produce, as a waste product, some spent fuel mixed with highly toxic radioactive compounds. Spent nuclear fuel stays radioactive for 300 years. In other words, this material will remain lethal for the next 3 centuries. There was a time when we thought it was safe to seal nuclear waste in special containers and bury it in a layer of rock salt without much exposure to underground water. Even though we now know there are big problems with that, we still do not have an effective disposal solution. Most of the nuclear waste we produce is just shoved underground with no intention of ever processing it. It is like an ostrich with its head in the sand. There is a process which involves mixing the nuclear waste with low-grade uranium to convert it into a mixed oxide fuel for burning in light water reactors, usually in the form of glass logs. But MOX contaminates a nuclear reactor more quickly than low-grade uranium. It is also highly toxic. It is economically unfeasible unless the price of uranium is more than 4 times what it currently is. Not only that, you cannot ignore the danger inherent in transporting the MOX from the processing factories to the nuclear reactors. An accident could lead to radioactive contamination, or the materials could be hijacked by terrorists. No, I do not think MOX could be called a viable solution to the problem of plutonium disposal. There is only one effective use for nuclear waste: military applications. You see, after chemical reprocessing, they can separate plutonium from the nuclear waste. Nuclear weapons normally use military-grade plutonium-239 with a purity of 93 to 94%. It is made in special nuclear reactors designed for military applications. On the other hand, the plutonium in spent nuclear fuel only has a purity of about 60%. But that does not mean that spent nuclear fuel cannot be used for military applications. America has been successful in tests using weapons made from nuclear reactor-grade plutonium. That means that eventually, everyone will be able to make nuclear weapons from plutonium separated from spent nuclear fuel. Spent nuclear fuel can also be used to make depleted uranium bullets or shells. They are armor-piercing anti-tank rounds. DU is 2.5 times denser than steel and 50% denser than lead. so it makes it an extremely effective armor-piercing weapon. It can cut through tank armor like a hot knife through butter. Unfortunately, when a DU round explodes, it spreads a fine dust which, when absorbed into a body, supposedly causes terrible long-term health problems, including genetic damage. During the Gulf War, American as well as Iraqi soldiers were exposed to DU dust and suffered from radiation poisoning and other illnesses. The American government conducted research to discover whether exposure could lead to cancer or genetic damage, but the results were inconclusive. Some people think that this type of radioactive contamination is what is behind the Gulf War syndrome, but the government will not admit it. They are currently doing research to find ways to transform minor actinoids, such as americium and neptunium, which are highly toxic with long half-lives, into nuclear materials with short half-lives. It is called extinction processing, but it is not being used much due to all the technical and economical problems with it. A serious program for nuclear waste treatment has yet to be established.
Snake, isn't the detonation code input system in the control room? Hurry up and get in there.
Snake, Leo DeRocher said, win any way you can. Nice guys finish last. What about you, Snake? Is that what you think? Is there anything that you wouldn't do to stay alive? You should think about that, Snake.
How's it going?
Not bad. I just got past his third security level. He was a pretty careful guy.
Do you think you'll break in soon?
I never met a system I couldn't bust into.
Okay, keep trying.
I did it!
You got past security?
Bingo!
Great. So what do you got?
I accessed the confidential Metal Gear file.
So what about the PAL override system that Baker talked about?
I haven't found it yet.
That's what I need to know.
But Snake, I found something else.
What?
The secret behind the new nuclear weapon. Just as I thought, the nuclear warhead is designed to be fired from the railgun like a projectile. It doesn't use fuel, so it isn't considered a missile. That way it can get around all sorts of international treaties.
Pretty sneaky.
Yes, but effective. And that's not even the scariest thing about this weapon.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
It's a stealth weapon.
You mean it won't show up on radar?
Yeah. The truth is, they've been working on a stealth missile since the late 70s.
Why weren't they able to develop one until now?
Because of the missile rocket propulsion system, it would be picked up by enemy satellites.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But unlike a missile, the railgun doesn't burn any propellant, so it can't be detected by any current ballistic missile detection systems.
An invisible nuclear warhead.
Totally impossible to intercept. And on top of that, it's got a surface-piercing warhead designed to penetrate hardened underground bases.
We learned that lesson in the Gulf War.
This thing could mean the end of the world.
It's the ultimate weapon. And from a political point of view, it avoids the problem of nuclear reduction and nuclear inspections. Colonel, is this true? Are you listening?
I'm listening.
If word of this got out, it could delay the signing of the START 3 treaty and cause a huge international incident.
Yeah, it would be nasty. The United States would be denounced by the UN. It could even bring the president down.
Did you know this, Colonel?
I'm sorry.
You changed, Colonel.
I won't make any excuses.
Snake, listen to me. This new nuclear weapon, it's never actually been tested, only simulated.
You mean they ran a computer model?
Yeah, that's why they were conducting this exercise. They needed to get actual experimental data to back up the simulation.
What were the results of the exercise?
It looks like it went better than they hoped for, but I can't find the data anywhere on this network. You'd think the data as important as that would be carefully recorded.
It was. President Baker gave me an optical disc with all of the test data.
What? Do you still have it?
No, Ocelot took it from me.
Damn. The terrorists have replaced the dummy warhead with a real warhead. Once they input the detonation codes, they should be ready to launch.
So you think they can do it?
Well, the dummy warhead was designed to be identical to the real thing, so I think so.
Did you find out how to override it yet?
Not yet. It must be in a separate file. Right now I'm looking through all of Baker's personal files.
We're counting on you. How about it? Did you find the override system file?
Not yet. I need a little more time. Well, I found lots of information about that new nuclear weapon. There are 4 stages involved in launching a ballistic missile. The first one is the boost stage. It starts at the point the missile is launched and ends after all the rocket fuel is burned and the missile is propelled into the exosphere. The next stage is the post-boost stage. It starts after all the fuel is burned and ends after the re-entry vehicle is ejected. Next is the intermediate course stage. It takes place after the re-entry vehicle is ejected and lasts until the missile enters the exosphere. Then comes the final stage. It starts when the re-entry vehicle enters the exosphere, and it lasts until it reaches its ultimate target on the ground. Missile defense systems use military satellites to detect rocket emissions during the initial boost stage of a missile. But this new nuclear weapon employs the railgun's ability to fire projectiles at ultra-high velocities instead of using a rocket. That's why it can't be detected by today's missile defense systems. And on top of that, the re-entry vehicle also uses stealth technology. It's so accurate that its 50% zone comes close to 50 meters. That's as good as the best ICBM.
A highly accurate, undetectable, uninterceptable nuclear weapon. We wouldn't even be able to tell where it came from.
And that's not all. A standard ballistic missile uses a 2-stage or a 3-stage solid fuel rocket for its propulsion system. Besides costing lots of money, safely maintaining the solid rocket fuel and readying the missile for launch requires a lot of work. But a railgun-launched nuclear warhead avoids all of those problems. And it's cheap, too.
It's the perfect nuke. A general's dream.
And the world's nightmare.
Snake, don't give up. Remember Macbeth Act 5, Scene 3. I'll fight till from my bones my flesh be hacked. Give me my armor. Everyone is counting on you, Snake. You've got to do it.
What was that noise?
Snake,
Did you find it?
no. I haven't found out about the override system yet, but I found Baker's ulterior motive.
He's just looking to get rich, isn't he?
Arms Tech is in much worse financial trouble than I thought.
I know they lost their bid to make the next generation fighter jet. That plus the reduction in SDI spending.
It looks like there was even some talk of a hostile takeover.
Everything was riding on this project, I guess.
And it looks like we were paying a lot of bribe money to the DARPA chief.
Bribe money, huh?
Yeah, and Baker was a big proponent of the nuclear deterrent theory.
I see. So anyway, what about the override?
Just give me a little bit longer.
Did you find the file for the override system?
Just wait a little longer. I found out a lot about the arms industry, though. After the Cold War ended, the United States slashed its defense budget by more than 15%. Naturally, the arms industry was severely affected. It resulted in an orgy of mergers and acquisitions. Some of the big arms conglomerates today are made up of what 10 years ago would have been 20 or more smaller arms companies. Arms Tech is one of those. But we lost our bid to produce the U.S. Air Force's next line of fighter jets. Then we took a stab at civilian applications, but that was a failure too. The company was about to go belly up. Ironically, the Defense Department was in pretty much the same situation. Thanks to big budget cuts, they were forced to turn to the private sector to help fund their weapons development. On top of that, the government began to actively export their advanced weapons technology to the private sector in order to maintain a high standard of quality in the country's defense armaments. Eventually, they decided on a joint development project for new weapon systems between the DoD and the private sector. And since both sides were in such bad financial shape, that's where all the back-scratching came in. So there was another reason for the joint development of Metal Gear, huh? It wasn't just President Baker trying to keep Arms Tech afloat.
War, he sung, is toil and trouble, honor but an empty bubble. What about you, Snake? Is your honor just an empty bubble too?
Okay, I've entered the PAL codes and disengaged the safety device. We can launch anytime.
There's still no response from Washington. It looks like we'll have to show them that we mean business.
Should I set it for Cherniton, Russia?
No, there's been a change. The new target is Lopnor, China.
Why, boss?
I'm sure neither you nor Mr. Golukovich would really like to see a nuclear bomb dropped on your motherland, right?
Liquid.
But why? There's nothing there.
Wrong. It's a nuclear test site.
A nuclear test site?
If we nuke a major population center, the game's over. But a nuclear explosion at a test site can still be concealed from the public. Meanwhile, Washington will be worried about the retaliatory strike from China.
That'll probably mean top-secret talks between both countries' leaders.
Of course. And in the process, the president will be forced to divulge the existence of a new and highly destabilizing nuclear weapon to the Chinese. What do you think that will do to the US's reputation? Or the president's?
And with the CTBT, that means that China and India, I see.
Yes. When the other countries hear about this new weapon, they'll all want to contact us. Washington won't be very happy when we start selling their own system to the highest bidders. Yes, the president will break. He will give in to our demands.
Big boss's DNA and $1 billion.
$1 billion? That money will be used to cure our genome soldiers as well. I'm also including the Fox-Die vaccine in our demands.
Fox-Die. It killed Octopus and the Arms Tech president. So it's true that it affects older people first. Mantis might not have been affected because he wore a mask.
Wolf wasn't infected either. Perhaps due to those tranquilizers she always took.
Something to do with the adrenaline level in the blood. Or maybe it's just because this fox dye was still experimental and they haven't worked out all the bugs yet.
In any case, have you heard from your friend, Colonel Sergei Golukovich, at the Spetsnaz?
He still has doubts about the ability of Metal Gear. He said we can talk after Metal Gear's test launch is successful.
He's a very prudent man.
There's nothing to worry about. The Colonel wants Metal Gear and a new nuclear weapon so bad he can taste it. If Russia wants to regain its position as a military superpower, they need to reinforce their nuclear arsenal. They need a nuclear weapon that can't be intercepted. Metal Gear will allow them to gain first strike capability over the rest of the world.
Their regular army is in shambles, and they think they can restore their country's military power with nuclear weapons? Golukovich, he's no warrior. He's a politician.
But he's the one who gave us the Hind and most of our other heavy firepower.
He's got over 1,000 soldiers under his command. If we join forces, we could put up quite a resistance here. Since Mantis died, the Genome Soldiers' brainwashing has started to wear off. I'm worried about the men's morale. An alliance with the Russians would boost that as well.
What are you saying?
We're not going anywhere. We're going to dig in here.
We could still escape.
We've got the most powerful weapon ever made, and we're about to ally with Golukovich's forces.
Are you going to fight the whole world?
And what's wrong with that? We can launch a nuclear warhead at any target on this planet. A nuclear warhead invisible to radar. And on top of that, this base is full of spare nuclear warheads. Once we get the DNA and the money, the world will be ours!
What about your promise to Colonel Golukovich?
I have no interest in the revival of Mother Russia.
You're not thinking of reviving Big Boss's dream.
From today, call this place Outer Heaven.
Big Boss's dream.
But boss, you're not worried about the PAL being overridden. If the code is entered again, it'll be deactivated.
No need to worry. The DARPA chief and the Arms Tech president are both dead.
Does Snake know how the override system works?
You interrogated him, don't you know?
He didn't have any keys on him.
Good. Then no one can stop Metal Gear now.
By the way, what should we do with that woman? Want me to kill her?
Let her live. She's Campbell's niece, and Snake cares for her. We'll keep her as our ace in the hole.
Meryl, she's alive.
Snake, I found Baker's top-secret files.
Great job.
How's it going there?
They've finished inputting the PAL codes. So how do we deactivate them?
Okay, you see the override system that the president was talking about. It can also be used to input the detonation codes. You see, if you insert the keys when the warhead is active, you deactivate it. And if you insert them when it's inactive, it becomes activated. And you can only use the keys once.
Only once, huh?
Yeah, you better get started. We don't have much time.
But it takes 3 keys, right? I've only got one of them.
Hold on a minute. You see, that's the trick. You already have all 3 keys.
What are you talking about?
The card key is made of a shape memory alloy.
Shape memory alloy?
Yes. It's a material that changes shape at different temperatures. The key is made out of it.
This card key?
Yeah. The card key changes shape at different temperatures.
So this key is actually 3 keys in one. Clever.
Can you see the input terminals in the center of the control room?
I see them.
Those 3 laptop terminals are for the emergency input. There should be a symbol on each screen. Each symbol corresponds to a different key. Input the keys in order from left to right. The left one's for the room temperature key. See the symbol? Next to that goes the low temperature key. The one on the right is the high temperature key.
Okay, I got it. First, I change the shape of the card, and then I input them in order, right?
That's right. All you do is insert the card keys. After After you insert the key into the module, a hard disk reads the information contained on it. Once you've finished with all 3 terminals, the code input process is complete. But here's the thing. You can only use the key 3 times. It's an emergency system. It's only meant to be used once.
The world is riding on that key, Snake.
Who's that?
Damn!
The key fell in the drainage ditch.
Snake! This is bulletproof glass. There's no way in. I'll enjoy watching you die.
Snake, you've got to get that key. Snake, they've input both detonation codes. The only way to stop the launch now is to use the card key to re-input the codes. Find that key. It fell somewhere in that drainage ditch.
The terrorists are finished inputting the detonation codes. The only way to stop the launch now is to re-input the detonation codes to lock the detonation mechanism. You need that key to do it. Find that key, Snake. There's no other way.
There is a big difference between conventional weapons and weapons of mass destruction. Conventional weapons are intended for use against military targets, but nuclear weapons are used against non-combatants. Nukes are designed to kill tens of thousands of innocent civilians in a flash. That is why nuclear weapons are so evil. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. That is why the world must never forget Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nuclear weapons are destructive enough to kill every living thing on Earth, and to render the planet uninhabitable for tens of thousands of years. In the history of mankind, there has never been a weapon created which was not later used. If we do not do something, we are just going to blow ourselves up. There's no doubt about it. As long as nuclear weapons exist, we have the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads.
You lost the key? Hurry up and find it. They've already entered the detonation code. The only way to stop that launch is to lock the system by re-inputting the detonation codes.
Snake, come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. We're almost out of time, Snake. Please hurry. You're the only one who can stop them from launching that nuke.